Hello and welcome back to another episode. Once again I'm here in the shed because once again I have been making something cool. And today's something cool was actually, well, it's a continuation of a theme. Obviously previously I've made something else from the Resident Evil universe, but in particular you may recall a couple of weeks ago I was playing the game Resident Evil 2 and talking about how much I just really love that game. It's my favourite Resident Evil game. And I got really inspired actually, having made the T-virus vials. I really wanted to make something from Resident Evil 2, something which was uniquely Resident Evil 2 and which was a bit quirky, kind of like from the Resident Evil universe. And well, what I came up with, I sort of remembered that one of my favourite things about Resident Evil 2 is the really bizarre security system in the police station, also actually leading, for example, down into the sewers and the lab and this kind of thing. And you know, you have gems, you have keys, but also as well you have this very particular mechanism which involves chess pieces and this sort of modified chess pieces modified by a particular character in the game. And I thought that's the perfect thing. Let's have a go at that. Now I'm really pleased with how these turned out. I actually made 2 copies. One copy has gone to a friend in Canada, and I'm more than happy to share with you today how I went about making these. So here is the box in which I've got my 4 chess pieces, and I'll come back to this in just a moment. Obviously there were 2 boxes because I ordered 2 chess pieces, or rather 2 chess sets, and the other box is now winging its way to Canada. So but I'll come back to the box in just a moment. Inside we have our chess plugs finished. We have the black bishop, the white rook, the white king, and also the black knight or horse. And this is kind of the box in which I've decided to sort of store and present these things. Now obviously all of this starts by ordering the chess pieces. I ordered 2 sets of chess pieces because I needed some unique pieces. They don't double up, for example the king. And thankfully these two sets came in their own boxes. Normally there'd be a divider down the middle for white and black pieces in a box like this. And I thought, well, this is actually the perfect box to store this stuff in. So I modified the boxes, but like I said, we'll come back to that. So I ordered the chess pieces, and the next question was, how do we put the plugs on the bottom of them? Now my first thought was actually spark plugs. If you look at the design of these plugs in the game, they kind of look a bit like spark plugs. There was a problem, and that is that it's really hard to get high resolution images of these keys or these plugs from Resident Evil 2. Online they're not really there, and actually I even played the game on a 40-inch TV, and it's not entirely clear what some of the details are. So for example, this section of the body, is it transparent? Is there like a needle that protrudes from the bottom of the plug? It's sort of hard to tell at times. But I had to make some design decisions, and the first one was helped along by the fact that well, a spark plug is almost impossible to cut. The ceramic, this white stuff here, runs up all the way up through the middle. You can see just protruding from the top just there, and you can't really cut this stuff. It's incredibly dense and hard. So I had to go to plan B, and plan B involved using these. These are adapters for jacks. So this is the one end we have the, I think, is it 3.5mm, the sort of the standard kind of thing you might find on headphones for your phone or something, and it expands up to these I think 1/4 inch jacks, which are the sort of stuff that you might plug into a guitar amp. And this is pretty much perfect for this purpose. I chopped off the black housing here, glued together the metal bits from the top and the bottom, so this bit here and this bit here aren't actually connected, so I had to just glue them together, and we ended up with the basis on which these plugs are made. Obviously the next step was to modify the plugs a little bit. So we have the red ring there, we have a black ring at the top. We also have a ring there which is part of the golden section at the bottom there, and all 3 of those I modelled using the good old green stuff from Games Workshop, that wonderful hard drying modelling epoxy clay type stuff, absolutely wonderful. And then I just had to paint it up. I mixed a sort of custom gold colour for the base of the chess pieces, and also for the end of the plug, and the rest is just basic colours. So black, a little bit of white dry brushing to bring out some details on the plugs, and also actually on the pieces themselves. You can see on the horse there, for example, and also obviously some red for the ring with an undercoat of white. I really actually incidentally like the way that these jack adapters have this sort of inbuilt. You see the copper band there. I quite like that little detail there. So really, that's how the pieces came together. Quite laborious, quite sort of, lots of steps that had to be done, but also quite simple as well. Now, that's the pieces, but what about the extra details? Well, I simply couldn't resist adding, I suppose, and referencing elements from the computer game. And that started, or rather that thought process started with this. This is or at least my copy, or my version of, a memo, or a document found in Resident Evil 2. This is actually the Watchman's Diary from the Saturday 19th of September 1998. And all of this is precisely what you find in the Watchman's Diary for that date. It references the chess piece plugs being made. Thomas, a quiet man, and really seems to enjoy chess. And he even went so far as to design a special key and lock engraved with chess pieces on them for one of the doors in the disposal yard. So I couldn't resist adding this. It's printed on quite nice quality paper. It's got the detail of some coffee having been spilt there, and also some bloody fingerprints on there, hinting at his ultimate fate. So that was sort of stage one. And then stage two actually involved, how am I going to store these pieces? And the answer was inside the box which they had arrived in. Now, the original chess box, or the first chess box, actually came covered in this sort of red Chinese-style paper. I didn't take all that much to modify it. All I did was I added on an iron-on umbrella patch, which I already had. I glued it onto that box, and also added on a sort of a tab made of from leather that I had lying around, and it was pretty much good to go. And that's the one that I sent off to my friend in Canada. But this second one required modifying in other ways. Actually, sorry, tell a lie. The first box I also actually added some felt on the inside using this beautiful sticky back plastic felt. I added some green felt on the inside and also green felt on the bottom of it. But this second box, what I needed to do was, yes, that stuff as well, but also it didn't come with any paper on the outside. So I actually had to cover it myself. And in order to cover it, I purchased some of this stuff here. It's textured brown paper, 5 sheets, shining leatherette it's called, and I really quite like the texture. It looks a bit sort of like a plant, or maybe like some sort of creeping virus or something. And so using a contact cement, a spray-on contact cement, it was simply a case of a little bit like a present, wrapping the box up, and then, well, sticking it down nice and tight. From the middle outwards, you sort of you put the paper on the box and then press outwards, making sure to keep the edges nice and crisp. And you'll notice that when the box closes, it lines up beautifully with the pattern on the edge. So that's how that was achieved. Basically, it was the chess box, a raw wooden pine chess box, and I just added some textured paper to it. I bought a second iron-on patch, glued it, added the leather tab, and this was this one ready to go. But there was one more detail that I wanted to add as well. In addition to putting the lining inside and the lining on the outside and this kind of thing, I wanted something which would just sort of set it off as an item from the Umbrella universe, and also actually a way to sort of sign my work. And this is what I came up with. It's a civilian operations archive. And you'll notice that I've gone through the trouble of actually copied some of the things that go onto a real museum archive label, but I've sort of made it Resident Evil appropriate. So the Umbrella Corporation is keeping an archive of its civilian operations. We have name, chess piece plugs and keys and reference, access to city sewers, locality, grounds of Raccoon City Police Department, Raccoon City post-outbreak incident, and then the date it was received, the 13th of November 1998, had to use the American format obviously, and also received by myself, Mark Barkman-Astles, employer reference number, just there. So I couldn't resist to sticking this on slightly haphazardly, slightly to wonky ankle on the side of the box, as many of these such labels are, hinting that this has been retrieved from the outbreak, possibly by someone like Hunk, maybe the Umbrella mercenaries, and this documentation, the pieces and everything has gone into this box, and it's in an archive somewhere at Umbrella Corporation Towers. And that, I think, really set the piece, well, sets this off quite nicely. I'm really pleased with how it turned out. I think it's obviously it's a unique piece, or unique pieces, as it were, and while it's not 100% accurate, to a certain extent they can't be, because the quality of the images that I could get from the game just weren't good enough. This is an interpretation of that locking mechanism, and something which really reflects my love of Resident Evil 2 and of the quirky nature of the Resident Evil universe. Incidentally as well, actually, the sponge that goes into the box to hold everything in place, this is actually a sponge filter for a fish tank. So the 2 centimeters depth precisely, that was what was required, and it just fits in beautifully. Cut it up into a rectangle and it holds everything in the box just gorgeously. There we have it. Couldn't be happier. So there you have it, the 4 chess piece keys or plugs and a presentation box from the Umbrella Corporation. I know I went a bit over the top with this one. I went a bit a bit geeky on the details, but I'm so pleased with how this turned out. And to be honest, I'd be more than thrilled to see if you guys make or even improve on this particular design. It'd be really cool to see what you come up with, if you do at all. So feel free to post any video attempts or responses below, and I'll definitely watch them and see what you've done in this vein. But nonetheless, hopefully this has been fun and enjoyable, and as ever guys, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.